You're sitting in a room full of people. The conversation is light, casual, even cheerful. Yet inside your head, something very different is happening. Your mind keeps noticing things others seem to miss. The tone behind a joke, the contradiction in someone's story, the deeper question hidden behind a simple topic. After a while, you stop talking as much, not because you have nothing to say, but because your thoughts have already gone 10 steps further. I've noticed this feeling before in my own quiet moments. It's strange how a mind can feel both powerful and exhausting at the same time. Psychology has long observed that highly intelligent people often experience the world differently. Their minds are constantly processing, connecting, questioning. But intelligence doesn't always bring comfort. Sometimes it brings distance. Carl Jung once wrote, "Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge." Carl Jung collected works of C.G. Jung. His words point to a subtle truth. When the mind never stops examining reality, life becomes more complex than it appears on the surface. And that raises a deeper question many people quietly carry. If having an extremely high IQ means seeing more, understanding more, and thinking more deeply, why do so many intelligent people feel misunderstood, restless, or even lonely inside their own minds? The tension often begins with something very simple: awareness. Not the ordinary kind, but a constant stream of observation that never fully turns off. Imagine sitting in a cafe with friends. Someone tells a funny story. Everyone laughs. Yet while the laughter is still echoing around the table, your mind is already moving somewhere else. You notice the hesitation in their voice. You wonder what really happened before the story began. You start thinking about why people shape stories the way they do. It's not intentional. The mind simply moves there on its own. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a form of heightened cognitive processing. Highly intelligent individuals often detect patterns faster and notice inconsistencies others overlook. The brain keeps connecting dots, even in moments that are meant to be simple. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, once wrote, "A reliable way to make people believe in falsehoods is frequent repetition, because familiarity is not easily distinguished from truth." Daniel Kahneman, thinking fast and slow. For someone with a highly analytical mind, this insight becomes hard to ignore. They begin noticing how often people repeat things without questioning them. Opinions, assumptions, social habits. And once you start seeing these patterns everywhere, it becomes difficult to stop noticing them. This constant observation can feel like living with a mental spotlight that never dims. It sharpens understanding, but it also makes the world feel more complicated than it appears on the surface. Over time, that quiet mental intensity begins to shape something else: the way highly intelligent people experience everyday conversations. At first, the distance is subtle. You're standing in a group conversation. People are talking about weekend plans, trending topics, small complaints about work. Nothing is wrong with the conversation. It's normal, friendly, familiar. Yet inside, something feels slightly disconnected. Your mind drifts toward different questions. Why do people chase certain lifestyles? Why do the same arguments repeat across generations? What motivates someone to act the way they do? You listen. You smile. But a quiet part of you feels like you're watching from the edge of the room rather than standing fully inside it. This experience isn't about arrogance or thinking others are less intelligent. In fact, many highly intelligent individuals report the opposite feeling. They often wish they could enjoy simple conversations more easily. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi observed something similar while studying gifted individuals. He wrote, "The problem with a very high intelligence is that it can lead to a sense of isolation if the environment does not provide adequate challenges." Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, Flow, the psychology of optimal experience. When the mind constantly searches for deeper ideas, everyday conversations can begin to feel like unfinished thoughts. So the person listens quietly. Sometimes they withdraw a little. Sometimes they speak less, not because they have nothing to say, but because explaining what they are thinking feels too complicated for the moment. And slowly, this gap between inner depth and everyday interaction opens the door to something even more demanding, the tendency for the mind to turn inward and begin overthinking itself. As that quiet distance grows, something else begins to happen inside the mind. The same awareness that notices patterns in conversations also starts turning inward. A small decision becomes a long internal debate. Should I say this? What will they think? What if I misunderstood the situation? Most people experience these thoughts occasionally, but for someone with a very active mind, the thinking process doesn't stop after the first or second possibility. It keeps expanding. Imagine sending a simple message to a friend. Hours pass without a reply. For many people, it's a minor moment, but a highly analytical mind may immediately begin constructing explanations. Maybe the message sounded wrong. Maybe something was misinterpreted. Maybe there's a hidden conflict. Psychology recognizes this tendency as rumination, a pattern where thinking loops repeatedly around the same problem. Psychologist Susan Nolan Huxamer, who studied rumination extensively, wrote, "Rumination involves repetitively and passively focusing on symptoms of distress and the possible causes and consequences of these symptoms." Susan Nolan Huxamer, women who think too much. The mind is trying to solve uncertainty. But instead of solving it, the thinking multiplies. Ironically, the more intelligent the mind, the more scenarios it can generate. Every possible outcome becomes visible. Every interpretation seems plausible. And when a mind sees too many possibilities at once, even simple choices can start to feel overwhelming. Which leads to another surprising reality. Intelligence does not remove uncertainty. It often makes it more visible. There is a common stereotype that highly intelligent people are purely logical, almost mechanical in how they think, but real psychological research often tells a different story. Many people with very high intelligence experience emotions with unusual intensity. They notice subtle shifts in other people's moods. A brief change in tone, a pause in a sentence, a slight hesitation in someone's expression. These small signals are often picked up immediately. Because their minds analyze so deeply, they also reflect deeply on emotional experiences. A moment of unfairness at work might stay in their thoughts long after others have moved on. A meaningful conversation can echo in their mind for days. Even stories about people they have never met can trigger powerful empathy. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski described this pattern while studying gifted individuals. He explained that highly intelligent people often experience overexcitabilities, heightened emotional and intellectual responses to the world. As Dabrowski wrote, intensity, sensitivity, and overexcitability are among the most important characteristics of individuals with advanced development potential. Kazimierz Dabrowski, positive disintegration. In everyday life, this emotional depth can be both beautiful and exhausting. A simple act of kindness can feel deeply meaningful, but a moment of disappointment can also cut deeper than expected. And slowly, many highly intelligent individuals begin to realize something about themselves. Their mind is not just searching for answers, it is searching for meaning. As time passes, many highly intelligent people begin to notice something unsettling. The things society often celebrates, status, titles, achievements, don't seem to satisfy them the way they appear to satisfy others. A promotion at work might feel exciting for a moment. Finishing a difficult project might bring a brief sense of accomplishment. But not long after, the mind begins asking a different kind of question. Is this really what matters? Someone with a very analytical mind often cannot ignore these questions. They look at success the way they look at everything else. They examine it, break it apart, and search for what lies underneath. Psychologist Viktor Frankl wrote about this deep human drive for meaning. He explained, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. For highly intelligent individuals, this insight becomes difficult to escape. Without a meaningful why, achievement alone begins to feel hollow. This is why many people with extremely high IQ eventually move toward deeper pursuits. They become drawn to psychology, philosophy, spirituality, creativity, or causes that improve the lives of others. Their intelligence stops being only about solving problems. It becomes about understanding life itself. And once this shift happens, another transformation begins quietly inside them, the realization that intelligence alone is not enough to live well. At some point, many highly intelligent people reach an important turning point. They begin to realize that the real challenge is not managing the world. It is learning how to manage their own mind. For years, their intelligence helped them understand systems, ideas, and patterns. But emotional balance requires something different: self-awareness. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence, once wrote, "If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, no matter how smart you are not going to get very far." Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence. This insight becomes powerful for someone whose mind is constantly active. They start learning when to pause instead of analyzing, when to listen instead of evaluating, when to simply experience a moment instead of mentally dissecting it. Small habits begin to change things. Taking a quiet walk without overthinking, letting a conversation flow without mentally correcting it, allowing uncertainty to exist without forcing an answer. Gradually, intelligence begins to work differently. Instead of amplifying confusion, it becomes guided by awareness. And when that balance starts to appear, the restless mind that once created distance can slowly become something else entirely, a source of clarity. So the real story of extremely high intelligence is not simply about having a faster or more analytical brain. It is about living with a mind that constantly searches for patterns, for explanations, for deeper truths about people and life. That search can create moments of loneliness. It can lead to overthinking, emotional intensity, and the feeling of standing slightly outside the ordinary rhythm of the world. But psychology reveals something important. The very qualities that make life more complicated for highly intelligent individuals are also the qualities that allow them to understand life more deeply. When intelligence is guided by self-awareness, empathy, and meaning, it stops being a burden. It becomes a form of wisdom. And perhaps that is the quiet truth behind the tension we began with. The goal is not to silence a powerful mind, but to learn how to live peacefully alongside it.